Hi, everyone, and thank you, Paul and Podrig, for inviting me on today. Um, Listened to the first 10 by 9 2 weeks ago, and I thought it was brilliant. So, anyway, I thought I would read a story about holidays. This is how I found myself in the dark in the desert in Egypt. So, I was on holiday with my friend Sam, and we'd gone on a cruise down the Nile, and we just had dinner and we're in the bar having a few drinks. And the cruiser had was sailing from Luxor to Aswan, and it had anchored on the bank of the Nile, basically in the middle of nowhere. There wasn't any sacred sites or monuments to be seen. It was just literally on the bank, and we were told we weren't getting off and probably weren't allowed to get off. But they had put the gangplank down to bring in some supplies. Of course, we had other ideas, particularly Sam. And so we decided we'd go for a walk. And we were wearing our jalubas, which is the garment the Arabic men wear traditionally. And so we walked down the gangplank and off we went for a little walk. And it was basically just the vegetation of the side of the Nile and then suddenly desert. And we kept walking, and there was a light in the distance, so we thought we'd walk towards that light. So down this sort of dusty track into the middle of the desert, dark, lovely stars, of course, and we eventually found this sort of ramshackled building, which was apparently some kind of cafe or restaurant. And all these men sitting around, traditionally all men sitting together, and they were eating and drinking and smoking those hubbly bubblies. Mind you, I'm sure that's not the technical term for it, but you know what I mean. And so we thought, well, this looks quite good. And so they were looking at us with great amusement, but they waved us in and we sat down, we ordered a drink, don't know what it was. And I was very conscious this young Arab boy, probably about 20, was staring at us. And then he came over and introduced himself and sat down, chatted. His English was very good, and we chatted and talked. Sam went to the toilet, and he turned to me and he said, "Would you mind if would you do me a favour?" And I said, "Well, if I could, I would." And he said he had fallen in love with this Dutch guy about 6 months ago, and they've been writing to each other. And this Dutch guy had expressed his undying love for him, and he wanted to come and live with him in Amsterdam. And he said to me, he said, "Would you do the pleasure of reading these letters and see if this guy is genuine?" So I said, "Yeah, sure, no problem," thinking that he maybe had them on him or was close by. Anyway, to cut a long story short, the next thing I'm walking for half an hour to this village. I'd explained to Sam what had happened. So off we went and came to this village. I want to say village, a few houses, probably about six, and one street. So we came to this house and went through what should have been a door, but actually was a curtain. And we walked into the hallway, and there were all these sheep and goats sort of milling around. And so we went through them upstairs into this bedroom. And it was very, very strange because it was covered in what I would describe as 1950s wallpaper. And there was this huge walnut wardrobe and walnut bed and a dressing table. Anyway, he went to the wardrobe and he got this box out and he sat down on the side of the bed and he gestured for me to come over and sit beside him. And he took out all these letters and he handed them to me. So I started reading them, and there were very lovely expressions of love and devotion and what he was going to do, what we were going to see in Holland. And then he said he'd run his own business and he had his own house, etc. And what I thought was very strange was it wasn't written on nice cards or lovely stationery or even ordinary stationery. It was written on those jotters, which has a spiral at the top, and when you pull it, all the edges all jagged, left with little jagged pieces of paper. So I thought, well, this is very strange. But anyway, this now young man was sitting staring at me, waiting for an answer. So I thought, what am I going to say? And I thought, well, I can't say him not to go, and I can't tell him to go. So I just thought for a moment, I thought, look, if you decide to go, will you promise me that you take return fare, enough money as return fare to Egypt? So a sort of blank look on his face, and I thought, oh. And then he just said, thank you very much, put the letters away, and he said, like to introduce you to my mother. So I said, why? Lovely. So we went downstairs and went through another curtain into another room, and here's about, I would say, 20 odd women all sitting around in a circle, some with burqas on, some with not, and chatting and drinking tea. And then he introduced me to this lady, and he said, this is my mother. She doesn't speak any English, but we chat and smile, and she's very gracious, and it's obvious that she wants me to stay for tea, traditional Arabic tea. And then I suddenly thought to myself, Ken, you are in the middle of nowhere, in the middle of the desert, in a village, you don't know where you are, how to get back to your ship, and will the ship have gone off? So it's like panic. And at that, I hear, Ken, Ken, Ken. And it's Sam. And he had found the village, or found his way there. How he did that, I don't know. I never found out, actually. Anyway, I went to the door where the curtain was and sort of gestured himself. I said, come on in, come in, come in, come in. So he came in, and we all had tea. His mother said, we have to have tea as well. So we all had tea, chatted, and then the young man said, I will walk you back to your ship and show you the way. So that was great. And off we went, and we walked through the darkness. Of course, beautiful skies of magnificent stars, which you can only see in that sort of no light place. And we eventually got to the ship. Gangplank was still there, thank goodness, and we walked up the gangplank. Sam said goodbye, and the young man shook my hands, and then he kissed me on both cheeks and said, thank you so much. And so I walked up the gangplank, and I turned and I saw him walk into the desert, into the darkness, and I never saw him again, and I never knew if he went to Amsterdam. So, the end. Thank you very much, and I'll see you sometime.